At 4:17, deep inside Nizhny Tagil's steel belt, the massive Ural-Vaganzavod tank plant sat under drifting steam when the night erupted. Without warning, 3 T-80 tank platoons, backed by Mi-28 gunships and BM-27 rocket salvos, surged from the northern rail yards, striking the perimeter from several directions. It was more than a raid, a full-scale armored clash aimed at shielding Russia's main tank factory and crippling Ukraine's deep strike drive. Within seconds, calm gave way to fire and steel, igniting a multi-stage battle that would rage for hours. Don't take your eyes off the screen until the secret is revealed. Comment number 1 if you like watching our videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about this battle in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Ukraine moved without pause, turning the night's chaos into a precision counterstrike. Hundreds of FPV kamikaze drones and reconnaissance Orlikas surged through factory steam toward the Ural-Vaganzavod perimeter, zeroing in on radar towers and Panzer S-1 batteries that ringed the plant. Explosions snapped the dark as sensor masts collapsed and fire control screens went dead. F-16 fighters swept in at barely 500 feet, using precision missiles to break up Russian MiG-29 interceptors and push them more than 20 miles back. To secure this aerial assault, mobile NASAMS launchers unfolded in hidden forest lanes, casting a 30-mile air defense shield that kept the sky lane open for the drone wave. On the ground, M270 rocket systems and M777 howitzers fired GPS-guided salvos from positions about 10 miles out, smashing armored choke points and fuel depots where T-80 tanks attempted to regroup. The synchronized strikes ripped a widening breach across the northern sector, isolating Russian defenders into scattered pockets. By first light, Ukraine had carved a direct corridor to the northern gates, perfectly setting the stage for the armored spearheads to surge next. The clash flowed seamlessly from the sudden attack, carrying the fight deeper into Russia's largest tank factory and signaling that the real battle had only begun. The drone and artillery breach from the previous phase opened a perfect lane for Ukraine's armored thrust. Leopard 2A6 and T-72 AMT tank columns surged through the northern gap, engines growling like thunder beneath rolling smoke curtains that masked their advance. The air still shimmered from the night's explosions as Uran-6 mine-clearing robots crawled ahead, their remote-controlled flails churning up hidden TM-62 mines and clearing safe lanes yard by yard. Behind them, mechanized infantry riding in armored carriers fanned out to secure the flanks, ensuring no Russian ambush teams could reseal the breach. Above the factory skyline, Mi-8 helicopters skimmed in, low, barely 200 feet off the deck, each carrying small skiff anti-tank squads. Ropes uncoiled, and the teams rappelled onto warehouse roofs, where they set up precision launchers with panoramic views of the plant's key junctions. From these elevated positions, they targeted T-80 formations attempting to pivot for a counterpunch, sending shaped charge missiles straight down into turrets. As the Leopards advanced, M270 rocket batteries and M777 howitzers continued to lay down intermittent suppressive fire from roughly 10 miles out, breaking up any concentration of Russian 2S-3 Akatsiya artillery. The combined pressure fractured the Russian armor screen into isolated knots of resistance, each struggling to maintain radio contact amid heavy electronic jamming. Every block inside the vast factory complex became a tactical chessboard. Ukrainian tank crews used rapid shoot-and-scoot maneuvers, firing from one alley and disappearing through another before Russian gunners could lock on. FPV drones hovered at 500-800 feet, streaming live video to direct each tank's movement and call in immediate fire if a T-80 group tried to break through. By mid-morning, the strike force had penetrated over a mile into the plant's interior, severing key conveyor spurs and hemming Russian defenders into scattered pockets around the central forging halls. What began in Part 2 as a calculated breach had now become a deep armored incursion, with Ukrainian units dictating the tempo and isolating the very heart of Russia's largest tank production line. The battle's momentum shifted sharply, setting up the next act in this relentless campaign. The armored push inside the Ural-Vaganzavad complex had barely slowed when a new layer of coordinated firepower unfolded overhead. From beyond the horizon, F-16 strike jets thundered in from 25 miles out, their afterburners glowing through dawn haze. They swept in at treetop level, each releasing JDAM-ER smart bombs that plunged through the factory's reinforced roofs, blowing apart conveyor spurs and key machining bays. High above them, Su-25 close support aircraft banked sharply and loosed precision rockets on fuel depots and hardened loading bays, creating firewalls that hemmed Russian armor into shrinking sectors. Guidance came from long-endurance reconnaissance drones orbiting at 5,000 feet. These unmanned scouts mapped blast craters and live enemy movements, relaying constant updates to strike pilots. Their data allowed bomb runs to be timed to the second, so each detonation complemented the ground advance rather than hindering it. On the ground, electronic warfare vehicles spread a dense electromagnetic fog, saturating Russian communications frequencies. Within minutes, several Tu-3 Akatsiya self-propelled howitzers misfired wildly, their shells bursting harmlessly in empty rail spurs or open yards. Ukrainian armored spearheads seized the chance to drive deeper, linking with infantry squads, clearing machine shops, and storage sheds. Farther back, M270 rocket systems launched staggered salvos that forced remaining T-80 seconds to scatter, leaving isolated tanks vulnerable to drone-guided ambushes. The combined air-land rhythm left the plant's defenders reeling. Airstrikes collapsed assembly halls just as ground teams closed escape routes, while precision timing kept civilian structures outside the target grid untouched. By midday, the once humming industrial giant had fallen eerily silent, its tank lines and fuel reserves crippled. Smoke columns towered thousands of feet, and the relentless sky-to-ground pressure cleared the way for the next phase of Ukraine's multi-domain assault, locking Russian forces into a tightening ring of fire and steel. The smoking silence over the crippled assembly halls lasted only moments before Russia struck back with brute force. From hidden launch points nearly 15 miles away, BM-27 Uragan rocket batteries lost wave after wave of 220mm salvos. The factory's inner yard, already choked with debris, erupted again as dozens of warheads pounded supply lanes and staging pads, seeking to sever the Ukrainian corridor carved during the earlier assault. Above the ruins, Mi-28 Hunter gunships knifed in at low altitude, their twin rotors thundering as they launched volleys of S-8 rockets and 30mm cannon fire. Coordinated by Orlan-10 reconnaissance drones circling at 6,000 feet, the Russian counterattack tracked every movement of Ukrainian armor, turning each exposed alley into a potential kill zone. Scattered T-80 survivors exploited these live feeds to stage sudden thrusts from concealed welding bays, trying to split Ukrainian spearheads from their rear echelons. But Ukraine had anticipated the push. Rotating swarms of FPV and reconnaissance drones surged back into the sky, their electronic links hardened against jamming. They hunted Mi-28 gunships in pairs, forcing the helicopters into steep, evasive climbs where heat-seeking missiles from mobile NASAMS launchers awaited. Fresh NASAMS units, redeployed within minutes, expanded a constantly shifting air defense bubble nearly 20 miles wide, sealing gaps before Russian aircraft could exploit them. Inside the contested plant, combat medics worked under this protective canopy, navigating twisted steel to retrieve both Ukrainian wounded and captured Russian crew. Armored ambulances rolled along pre-cleared corridors while electronic warfare vehicles masked their routes with intermittent signal fog. By early afternoon, the Russian Garnkim, the tightening pincer meant to choke the Ukrainian advance, had lost momentum. Rocket salvos fell increasingly off target, and isolated T-80 pockets found themselves surrounded by drones and artillery rather than the other way around. What began as a fierce counterblow ended as a costly deadlock for Moscow, with Ukraine holding every critical artery inside the world's largest tank plant and tightening its grip for the next decisive strike. The failed Russian counterstrike left the vast Ural-Vaganzavad complex scarred but still dangerous. Ukraine pushed immediately to finish the job from the inside. Armored doors blasted open under shaped charges as assault teams swept into welding halls the size of football fields, where sparks from shattered cranes still rained like molten snow. Visibility was poor, thick with dust and smoke, but palm-sized micro-drones zipped ahead down each corridor, transmitting thermal images and mapping every turn before a soldier took a step. Reconnaissance robots and miniature FPV hunters scouted machinery bays and overhead catwalks, flushing out hidden machine gun nests and sniper positions. When an ambush was spotted, operators guided the drones to strike directly, clearing the path without risking human lives. Skiff anti-tank crews, deployed earlier to rooftops, now shifted fire inward, using their vantage points to cover stairwells and elevator shafts. In support, M777 howitzers operating from concealed outer yards dropped laser-guided shells through open skylights, sealing key choke points and preventing Russian armor from regaining the initiative. Progress inside the plant was slow but relentless. Ukrainian soldiers advanced room by room through rail-loading tunnels and cavernous assembly sheds, marking cleared areas with infrared beacons. The terrain itself became a weapon. Collapsed gantries were turned into barricades, while cut power lines plunged entire wings into blackout to disorient Russian holdouts. Isolated T-80 crews tried to use underground service tracks for surprise thrusts, but FPV drones tracked their engine heat and relayed instant targeting data to skiff teams waiting in ambush. Close behind the assault units, humanitarian teams moved in tight formation, wearing blast-resistant medical packs. They marked safe lanes for evacuation and pulled both Ukrainian wounded and injured Russian workers from the smoke-choked interior. Combat medics worked under drone-guided suppressive fire, ensuring that captives and non-combatants were shielded from stray rounds. By late afternoon, the fight had shifted entirely underground and indoors, transforming the world's largest tank plant into a labyrinth of flickering shadows and sudden fire. Every welding bay, stairwell, and tunnel was now a contested microfront, but the momentum was one way. With each sector secured and communication relays intact, Ukraine methodically tightened its hold on the complex. What had begun outside as a clash of rockets and tanks now became a precise, room-by-room dissection of Russia's industrial stronghold, setting the stage for the final encirclement. The brutal indoor fighting gradually funneled Russian holdouts into shrinking pockets, and Ukraine seized the moment for a decisive strike. By late morning, a coordinated convergence unfolded across every axis of the Ural-Vaganzavod plant. From the west, Leopard 2A6 formations pushed in a wide pincer, their heavy guns methodically collapsing barricades and machine pits. To the east, M270 rocket batteries saturated key junctions from 10 miles out, sending steel rain that cut escape corridors and sealed maintenance tunnels. Above, F-16 strike jets swept in from high altitude, releasing precision munitions that punched through command bunkers and shattered last-ditch artillery nests. Drone packs, reconnaissance, and FPV descended like metallic rain, updating live target grids and striking exposed armor with pinpoint accuracy. Each strike was timed to match the armored push, creating an inescapable rhythm of impact that broke Russian cohesion. Supporting this full-spectrum assault, mobile electronic warfare trucks moved constantly, flooding radio and GPS frequencies with static. Entire Russian command nets went dark within minutes, leaving T-80 crews and infantry squads cut off from higher orders. One by one, isolated units abandoned their vehicles and surrendered, waving improvised white flags beneath towering smoke columns. By early afternoon, the plant's giant gantry cranes loomed as silent silhouettes against a sky streaked with black plumes. The entire complex, from rail-loading tunnels to final assembly halls, lay under Ukrainian control. The once relentless defenders had been broken into fragments, setting the stage for the campaign's closing reckoning and the strategic consequences that would follow. As the last echoes of battle faded, Ukraine held the entire Uralvagonzavod complex. Tank assembly lines lay silent, fuel depots gutted, and every major command node collapsed, the campaign's core objective fulfilled. Strategically, Russia now faces a long-term gap in heavy armor production, forcing costly redeployments and threatening its ability to sustain prolonged ground offensives. Yet one question looms. Will Moscow attempt clandestine factories deeper east or risk wider escalation to recover balance? The operation shows how drones, armor, precision airstrikes, artillery, and electronic warfare, anchored in humanitarian discipline, can neutralize even the world's largest armored plant, leaving towering smoke columns as stark proof of modern precision and restraint. At 5:17 a.m., Bryansk Air Defense Hub. A thick fog still clung to the Pine Ridges when the sky erupted. Without warning, 40 FPV kamikaze drones and 16 armed UAVs swarmed in from the north. Simultaneously, RBS-15 Mk3 cruise missiles, launched from Orkan-class corvettes off the Baltic coast, tore through the treetops at nearly 690 miles per hour. From the east, remote-controlled bomb robots crept along rail corridors, rigging radar trucks and supplying convoys with explosives. Above, Polish gunships strafed the perimeter with machine gun fire to clear the path for special forces. This wasn't harassment, it was a coordinated, multi-layered assault aimed straight at Russia's Western Air Defense Nerve Center. In seconds, the calm would shatter, and what followed would become a lesson in modern warfare. Don't take your eyes off the screen until the secret is revealed. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about this battle in the comments section. Thank you for watching. The opening salvo was only the beginning. As smoke still curled from the shattered radar trucks, Poland launched its second wave with brutal precision. Electronic warfare drones swept overhead, jamming Russian radar and scrambling missile guidance systems across a 12-mile radius. Moments later, Hawaii Mars batteries fired from concealed woodland clearings, their precision rockets slamming into outer S-400 sites with pinpoint accuracy. From the tree-lined flanks, Polish Leopard 2A5 tanks advanced undercover, deploying sniper teams and special forces squads on foot. Their targets, the Panzer S-1 units, still scrambling to reposition. One by one, Russian air defense crews were neutralized before they could react. Overhead, kamikaze drones locked onto Nebo-M radar vehicles, diving into their domes with explosive payloads. Meanwhile, robotic sappers crept through the forest floor, slicing fiber optic lines and burying charges near backup power hubs. Polish W-3PL Gushek gunships roared in low, unleashing unguided rockets into Russian staging areas and suppressing retreat routes. Their machine gun fire raked vehicle convoys attempting to escape through the narrow forest roads. The assault wasn't just relentless. It was layered, synchronized, and calibrated. Every strike, every blast, every drone was part of a wider plan to peel away Bryansk's defenses like an onion. And as the Russian perimeter collapsed under this coordinated blow, one thing became clear. Poland wasn't testing Bryansk's air defenses, it was dismantling them. The layered Polish assault had torn open Bryansk's outer shell, but Russia wasn't done. As flames engulfed radar stations and downed Pantsir launchers, a silent threat emerged from the Baltic Sea. Roughly 220 miles northwest of the Frontline, a Russian Kilo-class submarine breached calm silence. In rapid succession, it fired a volley of caliber cruise missiles, each traveling at over 550 miles per hour, and programmed to strike Polish HIMARS positions nestled in the woods near the Belarusian border. Within minutes, explosions rocked a Polish artillery staging zone, throwing vehicles into the air and knocking out two launchers. High above, Russia escalated further. An Il-22 PP Porbshik electronic warfare aircraft crossed into contested airspace, blanketing the region in disruptive jamming fields. Behind it, Su-35 seconds flanker E fighters screamed in low and fast, releasing anti-radiation missiles aimed at Poland's mobile radar and drone relays. The skies over Bryansk turned into a cat-and-mouse game of radar pings and electronic noise. Polish troops had to adapt quickly. One of their rear command posts took a direct hit from the caliber strike, severing uplink with the forward units for over 3 minutes. In that chaos, Poland activated Rosomak-mounted mobile command centers, rerouting control nodes on the fly while still coordinating fire support. At the same time, new threats emerged from the east. Russian Lancet loitering drones buzzed low over the treetops, zeroing in on exposed Polish positions. In response, Pilika air defense teams scrambled from dugouts, locking onto incoming UAVs with electro-optical sights and launching manpads in quick succession. The small-caliber anti-air guns mounted on tracked chassis lit up the morning haze with streams of tracer fire, punching several Lancets out of the sky before they could hit their marks. Despite the Russian counterpunch, Poland's layered structure held firm. Flexibility and redundancy command swaps, air defense on wheels, drones with mesh comms kept the entire strike package operational. While the calibers left craters and the Su-35 seconds carved sonic trails across the sky, they couldn't break the assault's backbone. Russia had fired from beneath the waves and from above the clouds, but Poland was still advancing. The Russian counterstrike may have rattled the Polish assault, but it didn't break it. In fact, it only accelerated the next phase. As mobile command posts rerouted coordination lines and Pilika teams cleared the skies, Poland's ground forces rolled into position for a full-on breach. From the southern forest edge, just 4 miles from the Bryansk air defense hub's inner perimeter, a mechanized column emerged. Polish upgraded T-72M1 tanks, reinforced with ERA blocks and thermal optics, led the charge. Behind them, infantry fighting vehicles, IFVs, and troop carriers advanced in tight formations, their turrets scanning for resistance. The push was swift, deliberate, and covered by thick smoke screens laid earlier by UAVs and Krab's self-propelled howitzers. Simultaneously, RBS-15 Mauk 3 missiles, initially launched during Phase 1, were now retasked mid-flight by Polish airborne drone relays. Updated GPS coordinates sent them diving with terrifying accuracy into Panzer S-1 vehicle, lots and mid-tier radar installations deeper inside the base. The explosions were massive, setting off secondary blasts as fuel trucks and ammo depots lit up in orange fireballs. Drone footage captured the assault from above. FPV kamikaze drones weaving between treetops, smashing into radar masts and mobile EW vans. Combat robots, low-profile, four-wheeled bomb-laden crawlers slid into trench lines and ventilation grates before self-detonating, tearing through reinforced bunkers. Polish Krab howitzers, parked behind ridgelines 6 miles south, lobbed 155mm shells in coordinated arcs to soften Russian strongpoints. Their fire was guided by forward observers riding inside fast-moving Rosomak vehicles, now acting as mobile targeting units. Within minutes, the outer trenches of Bryansk were in chaos. Drone strikes from the west, missile barrages from the north, and armor breakthroughs from the south created a three-pronged pincer that folded Russian defenses in on themselves. Surveillance feeds showed Russian conscripts abandoning positions, some trying to flee through utility tunnels as flames engulfed the perimeter. Overhead, Polish W-3PL helicopters circled high, suppressing pockets of resistance with strafing fire while relaying coordinates to ground batteries. The entire operation moved like a machine armor, artillery, drones, and robots moving as one synchronized force. Bryansk's core was now exposed. The outer ring of defenses had cracked, and the inner sanctum housing command bunkers, power nodes, and data links was within reach. The fortress was bleeding, and Poland was closing in. The breach was no longer a breach, it was a full collapse. As Polish tanks punched through from the south and RBS-15 missiles leveled key radar hubs, the last defensive lines of Bryansk Air Defense Hub buckled under pressure. It was time for boots on the ground to finish the job. Polish Special Forces teams, moving under cover of drone overwatch and smoke laid by artillery, advanced into the scorched interior of the base. Their objective: secure the underground command centers, neutralize any remaining resistance, and extract high-value data. Using short-range indoor drones, these teams mapped hallways and chambers in real time, scanning for movement, heat signatures, and signs of booby traps. Small, camera-equipped ground robots, some no larger than a backpack, crawled into ventilation shafts and stairwells first, searching for mines and tripwires. One robot triggered a pressure sensor. Its detonation saved the squad behind it. By 7:21 a.m., Polish commandos had reached the entrance to the central command bunker. The heavy blast doors had been disabled during the prior missile strike. Inside, a few stunned Russian officers surrendered without a fight. Others lay wounded, covered in dust and debris. Polish medics, operating under strict humanitarian protocol, immediately began treating the injured, even those who had fought just moments earlier. Outside, a burned-out Russian Nebo-M radar truck now flew the Polish flag planted by a reconnaissance team as a signal to overhead drones that the sector was secure. The visual was striking. Smoke still curling from nearby wreckage, while soldiers in Polish camo secured the perimeter with rifles at the ready. Meanwhile, underground, Polish cyber specialists and electronic warfare engineers began extracting data from radar consoles and hardened network drives. Their mission wasn't just tactical, it was strategic. Every byte pulled from Bryansk could expose Russian air defense patterns, frequency libraries, and command protocols used across the Western theater. Above ground, the battlefield shifted tone. With the firing dying down, combat engineers began clearing paths for casualty evacuation and equipment recovery. Drones patrolled overhead, ensuring no ambushes would catch the recovery teams off guard. The fortress had fallen, not in a blaze of glory, but in a calculated surgical dismantling, drone by drone, squad by squad, byte by byte. Poland didn't just seize Bryansk, they decrypted it. As Polish forces secured the underground bunkers and cyber teams exfiltrated Bryansk's radar data, the window for a Russian counterstrike was rapidly closing. But Moscow wasn't ready to concede, not yet. At exactly 6:12 a.m., a new threat emerged from the skies. From launch pads near Smolensk, swarms of Lancet loitering munitions surged toward Bryansk, targeting Polish armor and comms hubs. At the same time, Iskander-M short-range ballistic missiles were fired from Orel, traveling at Mach 6 with intent to obliterate Polish command nodes and mobile artillery. The barrage was a blunt force attempt to halt the occupation, but it came too late and too scattered. By now, Poland's air defense grid had fully matured. Pilika anti-aircraft systems, mounted on fast 4x4 platforms, detected the Lancets as they approached low and fast across the treetops. Within seconds, quad-cannon turrets and infrared-guided missiles began painting the sky with streaks of steel and smoke. Most of the Lancets were shot down before they reached their targets. At longer ranges, Hybernet mobile anti-aircraft artillery built on old Star 266 trucks, but equipped with radar-linked 23mm cannons, engaged both UAVs and incoming submunitions from the Iskander strike. While one Polish artillery battery took a glancing hit, the network held. Damage was contained, and no critical node was lost. But Poland wasn't about to sit still. As the smoke from the downed Lancets drifted eastward, W-3PL Gushek helicopters launched from hidden forest clearings, flying in from opposite flanks in a sweeping crescent formation. These helos, armed with unguided rockets and 50 calories machine guns, moved fast and low, skimming tree lines at just 200 feet above ground level. Their mission: eliminate any surviving Russian forward observers and drone operators near the Iskander launch corridors. Within 18 minutes, their coordinated strike set several Russian staging areas ablaze and disrupted any hope of real-time target adjustment. Back at Bryansk, the last active radar dome, already damaged from earlier strikes, went dark at 6:44 a.m. With it, Russia's defensive eyes in the Western theater blinked out. The final Russian counter had come and gone like a thunderstorm, loud, fast, and ultimately ineffective. Poland had not only absorbed the blow, it had turned the momentum back on its enemy. Bryansk was no longer contested. It was in Polish hands, and the skies above it now answered to Warsaw. With the final Russian radar dome offline and the last wave of Lancets neutralized, Poland shifted gears from assault to stabilization. The battlefield had gone quiet, but the mission wasn't over. The Polish command issued immediate orders. No scorched earth tactics. Instead of destroying everything in sight, Units were tasked with securing high-value assets. Radar equipment, servers, encrypted communication terminals, all were carefully extracted from hardened bunkers. This wasn't just about winning territory. It was about winning intelligence. Captured Russian weapons were gathered, cataloged, and marked for forensics teams. Unused Iskander submunitions and damaged EW vans were cordoned off for later analysis. Every piece of hardware could reveal insight into Russia's broader air defense doctrine. Meanwhile, Russian prisoners of war, many of them dazed conscripts, were given medical treatment on site. Polish medics administered first aid under drone overwatch, while armored vehicles formed mobile perimeter screens. Humanitarian protocols were strictly enforced, proof that even amid electronic warfare and robotic combat, the rules of engagement still mattered. Overhead, long-endurance surveillance drones remained in constant rotation, scanning the outer perimeter for any signs of a delayed Russian counterattack. None came. Bryansk was subdued, both physically and electronically. What emerged wasn't just a battlefield victory, it was a demonstration of humane, technology-driven warfare. In a conflict where hypersonic missiles and AI-driven drones dominated headlines, Poland had shown that precision could coexist with restraint. And as the sun began rising over the scorched earth, the message was clear. This war could be fought smart and fought right. The silence that followed the battle at Bryansk was more than just the end of gunfire. It was the collapse of a cornerstone. Tornado S launchers fired dense salvos of 300mm rockets across a 40-mile arc, while Iskander M ballistic missiles streaked in at near March 6 towards suspected command vans. Far above, S-400 surface-to-air missile batteries tried to lock the fast-moving drones and low-flying aircraft, throwing up a shifting curtain of interceptors. The two sides were now locked in a battle of sensors and deception, each trying to blind or mislead the other. By the end of this phase, control of real-time intelligence, who could see, decide, and strike first, had become the decisive prize, setting the tempo for the heavy assaults to come. By the end of the reconnaissance phase, the picture on every commander's screen had snapped into focus, and Ukraine struck. Guided by drone-fed coordinates, batteries of M270 and HIMARS unfolded into firing positions roughly 10-20 miles behind the front and poured staggered salvos into identified ammunition dumps, fuel nodes, and artillery parks. Each rocket flight was timed to arrive as ground maneuver elements closed, turning enemy depth into kill zones. On the ground, Leopard 2A6 and 2A4 crews exploited those gaps with methodical rushes. Tanks moved in bounding overwatch, while dismounted infantry armed with NLAW anti-tank rockets cleared defilades and breached hedgerows. Close air support from Su-25 seconds threaded the low corridor at a few hundred feet, painting targets with